It was the lure of gold that first brought prospectors to the Stewart area in the 1890s, and by 1918, this northwestern BC region was home to a bustling mining operation. Between 1918 and 1968, 1.8 million ounces of gold and 41.1 million ounces of silver were mined. Based on current prices, that output was worth 1.1 billion Canadian dollars. Longtime Stewart resident Ian McLeod talks about life in this mining community during the early years.
Well, Stewart had its start just before the turn of the century when the Klondike Gold Rush was underway, and a swindler in Seattle sold 60 tickets on a steamship with the promise of showing an easy route into the Klondike. They landed here at Stewart at the head of the Portland Canal and were preparing to strike out overland when the next morning the swindler was gone. He'd sneaked off in a canoe and the men were left stranded here. So they started prospecting in the creeks and the mountains and came up with a few promising looking showings. So Premier was self-sufficient. Had its own school, its own hospital, its own doctor, store, auditorium, movie theater, and there were 40 or 50 families living and housing scattered around the hill, as well as 150 men in the bunkhouse.
Mining has a long and intriguing history in northwestern British Columbia. It has always represented hope and discovery, challenges and rewards. Discoveries and early mining operations in the Stewart area have continued to point the direction for newer ventures, such as the Premier Gold Project. This modern project north of Stewart BC was built by Westmin Resources Limited and its joint venture participants, and operates using the most up-to-date mining, mineral processing, and environmental protection practices. Premier Gold is located approximately 15 kilometers from Stewart, British Columbia. This open-pit mining operation comprises the Premier and Big Missouri properties, which include the Premier, Dago, S1, Province, and Martha Ellen deposits. Mining operations are scheduled for approximately 10 months of the year, weather permitting, and the 2,000-plus ton per day mill operates on a continuous basis throughout most of the year.
Start the short whistles. Okay. Fuse is lit. Fuse is lit, Ross.
Premier Gold is currently an open pit operation using conventional drilling, blasting, loading, and hauling equipment. The economic viability of precious metal mining is continually affected by such diverse elements as the mining costs, ore grades, mill recoveries, and metal prices. At Premier Gold, Westmin is working to reduce these risks by such techniques as ore reserve averaging, engineering refinements, and metal price hedging. This is essential considering that from each ton of ore, an average of only 0.07 ounces of gold and about 1.0 ounces of silver are extracted. Putting it another way, it requires over 14 tons of ore to recover just 1 ounce of gold. At the current production rates, approximately 60,000 ounces of gold and 500,000 ounces of silver are being produced each year, and reserves should be sufficient to last until 1996. The potential for finding additional reserves that would enable further underground and open pit development is promising, and could take this operation well beyond the year 2000.
Unless they're in here with the loader.
It's good for the database, though.
Exploration is an ongoing process, searching, sampling, and drilling. Mine planning engineers and mine geologists then use the raw mineral deposit data gathered from exploration in order to determine the best and most efficient methods to mine the ore. Premier Gold has its own modern assay lab, which allows for the efficient assaying of metal content on site. After samples are analyzed, geologists and mine planning engineers study the results and map out the distribution of the ore. The plan is then sent to the production group to determine how to best extract it. A mining milling operation the size of the Premier Gold project takes a tremendous amount of power. Rather than develop its own source of power, Westmin agreed to purchase power from BC Hydro, prompting the power company to extend its grid. Not only does it allow a mining operation of this large scale, it now means Stewart has a secure source of power to help attract other businesses and industries to the area. Construction of this modern mill located at the Silback Premier property began in 1988. The first doré bars, a mixture of gold and silver, were poured in June 1989. While panning for gold creates a romantic picture of early gold rushes, at modern gold mining operations, it takes a lot of rock, a lot of grit to produce even an ounce of the precious gold and silver. Once the ore is blasted, it is hauled by truck and dumped into the primary jaw crusher, where it is broken down in size for the step-by-step procedure that makes up the milling process. Ore is also stockpiled in order to keep the mill operating throughout the winter. After leaving the primary crusher, the ore begins its trip through the grinding circuit with a semi-autogenous grinding mill, so called because it uses large pieces of ore and steel balls to break up the smaller pieces before they go into this ball mill to produce the final grind. The ore is ground in cyanide solution, thickened, and then leached for 55 hours in the pre-leach and carbon-in-leach tanks, surrounded by a concrete containment vessel which serves as a safety barrier. The gold and silver in the solution attaches itself onto the carbon in the carbon-in-leach tanks and is screened off. In addition, the leach thickener overflow passes through carbon columns where more gold and silver is absorbed. The water containing cyanide is then recycled back into the process. The precious metals attached to the carbon are stripped in this conventional pressure stripping circuit. These metals are then precipitated with zinc and smelted to doré bars in this electric induction furnace. Temperatures in this oven reach 1200 degrees Celsius. About 90% of the gold and 60% of the silver in the ore are forecast to be recovered with this process. The result? These doré bullion bars. The fine ground-up rock that remains after cyanide leaching is treated with sulfur dioxide and air to destroy any residual cyanide before it is released to this tailings facility. The tailings are sprayed from spigots into a special impoundment designed to hold all the tailings produced during the life of the mine. Included in this design are provisions for permanent underdrainage and facilities for monitoring the characteristics of the water and recycling it for reuse in the mill. Eventually, this site will be reclaimed and returned to a natural state by the company. Protecting the environment is a priority. Westmin is aware of what it owes to the natural environment and man's need for a clean environment. In fact, Westmin has received international recognition for its role in developing successful environmental technology at its Myra Falls operations. And the company has put this technology to work in designing the Premier Gold project. More than $5 million has been spent on site preparation and various environmental and regulatory studies. Dependable state-of-the-art technology such as dust suppression systems, wet scrubbers, and water treatment facilities are designed to eliminate any potential harm to the environment. Westmin is also aware of its social responsibility at the mine site and throughout the region. Many people who live in the northwest region of British Columbia benefit from this new mining operation. From direct employment to increases in the purchase of goods and services, the Premier Gold project strengthens the local economy. It also provides support for important northwest supply and service centers like Terrace and Smithers. Westmin's policy is to hire and buy locally whenever possible, if quality meets specifications and prices are competitive. Jobs are of specific interest to area residents, and at full operation, Premier Gold employs approximately 130 people on a permanent basis and up to 170 during peak periods. Premier Gold employees are encouraged to participate in the community. Westmin's wish is for its employees to become part of the community and to support facilities already in the town. This helps local businesses to prosper and in the long term benefits the whole area. The total mining operation will help Stewart grow in many ways. Already there is a new entrepreneurial spirit in the community. Population is on the increase and will bring economic benefits to the entire region. Residential housing in Stewart will grow. Currently, housing is in short supply. As a result, new housing starts may increase, and it is hoped this trend would then continue. Some of these changes will be gradual, while many others have already brought new opportunities and hope to the region. Westmin is grateful for the warm welcome the company and its people have received. And Westmin remains true to its goal of operating a project that is a positive and rewarding experience for everyone in the community.